Oh, hey there, web wizards. I didn't see you slide in. I was just taking Annie for a little walk cycle and tuning her rhythm. She's got a really big performance today. You see, transitions, they're cute little reflexes. But tonight, we're choreographing. We're putting the key in keyframe. My trusty sidebot will be walking you through an overview of Annie-Mation, our full-on CSS choreography toolkit. I'll be popping in between segments to give you the director's cut commentary, of course. Why some things work better than others, where things tend to go bork bork and fly off the rails, and some tips on how to make your motion magic magnificent. Grab a front row seat. Let's talk CSS Annie-Mation. Roll it.
Okay, let's fire this thing up. Look, we've already covered transitions, right? That's just getting your elements from point A to point B. It's fine. But tonight we're going way beyond that. We're talking about giving our code a pulse. This isn't just movement. This is a performance. So lights down, grid on. Tonight, we're going to teach divs to move with intention. See, keyframes, those are our marks in time. The timing functions, well, that's what gives the movements its attitude. And the animation property itself, that's what turns a static element into a living story. We're done reacting. It's time to start directing. So cue the lights. Let's make this browser move with some real purpose.
Hold the lights. This is our first big mental glow up of the chapter. Most folks treat animation like hovers, fades, wiggles, and button boops. Cute, but shallow. The moment we start thinking like a director instead of a clicked reactor, we unlock stuff like onboarding sequences, narrative reveals, attention funnels. Same coder, different brain. Now, let's raise the curtain and really slide into it.
All right, here's the plan for today's choreography. First, we'll go from stillness to story. Then we'll mark our steps, find the rhythm, and build out the whole routine. After that, it's all about cueing the performer, and we'll wrap up with the perfect encore, making sure it all runs smoothly. First up, from stillness to story. This is all about where simple motion becomes a real performance. So, what's the big deal here? Let's get this straight. Think of a transition as a reflex. You hover, it moves. It's purely reactive, just a simple A to B shift. But animations? Oh, animations are a full-on performance. They've got a script. They can go from A to B to C and all the way back again. They can loop, they can reverse. They tell a whole story without needing you to poke them every second. And hey, every great performance needs a start, right? So meet your lead performer, Annie the Techno Pup. She's going to be our guide on the grid, showing us exactly how all this stuff is done. All right, part 2, marking your steps. We're digging into the at keyframes rule now. If you want to direct a performance, you gotta set some marks on the stage. For us, those marks are keyframes. So what is a keyframe exactly? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like the DNA of your animation. It's basically a timeline, from a start point at 0% to a finish line at 100%, and you get to define exactly what your element looks like at every single crucial moment along the way. Let's look at a simple example right here. We've got an at keyframes rule named float. At the start, that's 0%, it's in one position. Then at the halfway point, 50%, we tell it to move up. And by the time it hits 100%, it's back where it started. See? It's just a set of instructions, key poses on a timeline. That's our choreography. Now, a script is useless without an actor, right? So we have to actually assign that float animation to an element. We do that with the animation property. This one little line of code is so powerful. It says, hey, use the float keyframes, make it last for 2 seconds, use an easy and out rhythm, and just do it forever, all in one go.
Okay, just got to jump in for a second here and tell you a couple of things to watch out for. Almost every animation bug I see comes down to one of two things. Keyframes named one thing, and animation name set to something almost the same but not quite the same, or people stuffing everything into the keyframes, including the timing function, the duration, on each of those points in time instead of separating out what changes from how it feels. Keyframes are supposed to describe the moments in time where something is happening, where it is. And the animation properties on the object, when you attach the animation by its animation name, are supposed to shape the personality. That's it. Carry on.
Okay, time for section 3, finding the rhythm. This is where we really step into the director's chair. See, keyframes tell us what happens, but the animation properties, they control the how, the when, and the why. This is where you inject all the personality. First up is animation duration. Super straightforward. It's the tempo. How long does one loop of the animation take? Is it a super quick dash or a slow, graceful stroll? This one property sets the whole pace of the show. Then we've got animation timing function. And this is all about the attitude, you know? Is the movement robotic and constant, which is linear? Or does it feel more natural, starting fast and then gently slowing to a stop, like ease out? This is what gives your motion its unique character.
Don't memorize easing curves like a quiz list. It's not worth it. Instead, you want to do a rhythm pass on one element or more. Check it out, fast, slow, weird. Put together a cubic Bezier chaos dance. Train your eye, build your taste. Don't try to stuff your brain with all of the syntax. Instead, play.
Let's talk about animation delay. This is your secret weapon for dramatic timing. It's just a pause, a beat. It holds the action for a moment before anything starts. You can create some amazing staggered effects and build up a real sense of anticipation with this. What about animation direction? This is how you get really clever with your loops. Instead of just playing from start to finish over and over, you can make it play forwards, then immediately play in reverse. Setting it to alternate gives you that perfect back and forth ping-pong effect. Super useful for things that bounce or pulse. Okay, animation fill mode. This one's super important but can be a little tricky. It basically answers one question. What styles does the element have before the animation starts and after it ends? If you set it to forwards, it tells the element to hang on to the styles from the very last keyframe. This is absolutely essential for things like an entrance animation that only runs once. You don't want it snapping back to the beginning, right? All right, we've got the individual moves down. Now it's time to build a whole routine. This is where we stop thinking about single steps and start choreographing complex, expressive sequences. You know, the best animations, they tell a little story. Take a look at this. It's a 3-beat narrative. At 0%, we have a crouch, it's building tension. Then at 40%, we get the launch, maybe even overshooting just a little for dramatic effect. And finally, at 100%, it lands and settles. You see that? It's a whole story arc. You've got anticipation, action, and resolution, all in one animation.
The story arc. To tell a story, no matter how epic or teeny tiny, you really need to think in beats. Anticipation, action, resolution. CSS lets us write those beats in code, a beginning, a middle, and end to every animation. A jump isn't just a jump. It's a deep, squashing crouch, then an elastic upward, stretchy launch. And then always, always, always you need to wrap things up with your grand action conclusion, the graceful or clumsy or even catastrophic landing. You'll also want to name your animations by what they do. Float Y, suit glow, ear flop, and then within each of those animations, create that arc to tell your story.
Get this, you're not stuck with just one animation at a time. You can layer them. Just by separating them with a comma, you can run multiple, totally independent animations on the same element. So here, Annie can be floating up and down on one timeline, while her suit is pulsing with a glow on a completely different timeline. It's basically multi-track recording, but for motion. Moving on to a crucial part, cueing the performer. Because, let's be real, motion that just runs on its own is often just decoration. To make it truly powerful, we need to connect it to user interaction. Let's make this stuff interactive. So what's the best way to do this? Honestly, the cleanest, most reliable method is just to toggle a class with JavaScript. You set up your entire animation on a specific class, maybe something like .reveal, and then your JavaScript just adds or removes that class whenever you want the show to start. It's simple, it's direct, and there's no weird magic involved. Okay, but here's a classic problem you're going to run into. What if you want to run that animation again? You click a button, it plays. Great. You click it again, and nothing happens. The browser sees the class is already there, so it doesn't replay the animation. So how do we fix that? With a little bit of what I like to call browser jutsu. It's a clever trick. You have to remove the class, then immediately force the browser to recalculate something about the element, like asking for its off width. This makes the browser repaint or reflow the element. Then you add the class back on. That quick little sequence tricks the browser into thinking it's a brand new animation, and it'll play again perfectly from the beginning.
Okay, that slide's a little bit ridiculous and confusing. So let's unpack it. The problem we're solving is that once an animation has run, the browser thinks, cool, class is already there, nothing new to do. Even if we take it off and add it back on, it's not going to re-trigger that animation. So why? Mainly it's because the browser is really aggressively batching style changes in a single tick to make everything look as smooth as possible for the end user. And us as developers get the short end of the batch again. So, in order to get that animation to actually start over, we have to convince the browser that something has really changed. We do it like this. Step 1, remove the class that has the animation. Step 2, force the browser to notice the change of that class having been removed by reading a layout value, like element offset width. The notebook got that one wrong too. Just reading that property makes the browser recalculate the layout, not repaint the page, but recalculate the layout, and that's our reflow part. Then step 3, we add the class back on. Because we forced that little layout refresh in between, the browser now sees it as a brand new animation and plays it again from the top. In the slide, the void keyword is just there so that we can call element offset width as a throwaway expression. We don't care about that number, we only care that the browser did the recalculation. That's the whole browser jutsu. Remove class, force a reflow, add class back, animation restarts.
All right, we're in the home stretch, the perfect encore. Look, you can have the most beautiful animation in the world, but if it's janky and slow, it just ruins the whole experience. So let's talk performance and best practices. If you remember one thing about animation performance, let it be this: stick to animating, transform, and opacity. That's it. Why? Because the browser can pass those two properties straight to the GPU, the graphics card, which is built to handle this stuff incredibly efficiently. The result is buttery smooth motion. But if you try to animate things like width, height, or top, you force the main CPU to recalculate the entire page layout on every frame. And that is how you get jank.
Yeah. Somebody out there is probably screaming inside right about now because I just said that reading the offset width of an element doesn't cause an expensive repaint. The difference here is between a reflow and a repaint. When we read offset width, which is a reflow, the browser is forced to flush its styles and run layout right then and there before JS continues. It's a synchronous layout pass on the main thread, and that can be bad. Layout can lead to a repaint if the browser detects new positions or sizes. It will have to do a redraw at least of part of the page and then recomposite everything. That will be pricey if the DOM is large. There are lots of things that depend on the element that we're animating, or we do it in a loop, a scroll handler, or a rapid fire event. But for a single click-triggered animation restart on one element, totally acceptable, micro cost, users almost certainly won't notice, even if you did. If we really want a more performant option, we can also use the request animation frame trick instead. We take the element, remove the class from its class list, and then immediately after that, we call request animation frame, and in our callback function, we call element class list add and the class that will trigger the animation again. That way, we do restart the animation just before the next animation frame, but it doesn't force a mid-frame synchronous reflow just to make the browser notice us. How about I stop blocking the main thread here and let T.A. Watts get back to it? Here's the bottom line. If the properties you're animating affect layout, it's going to be expensive. Width, height, top, left, leave them alone. Transform and opacity, GPU magic. Choose magic. Choose wisely.
And finally, this is absolutely non-negotiable. Accessibility. Some of your users get motion sickness or just find animations distracting. You have to respect that. You do this by wrapping your animation styles in a media query for prefers reduced motion. This is a huge win for accessibility, and it takes almost no effort. Seriously, always, always do this. And there you have it. You've got the core fundamentals of CSS choreography now. If you want to go deeper, you can check out the full lesson on WebDev TnT, grab all the code from the demo repo, and get ready for the next chapter. Remember, motion is storytelling, and now your elements finally know how to dance. That's it for this one. Thanks for dropping by, Professor Solo. And as always, P.S. Keep learning.
Okay. Pick your target. Give it motion with attitude and flair. Respect the humans who prefer a calmer screen, and then ship the magic. We've just learned how to turn static code into choreography, how to make the browser move when we say so and not a millisecond earlier, though sometimes a tick later. And this was just a warm-up for what's flying at us, top speed with barely any brakes. Next time, we're leaving the dance stage and stepping into the blueprint. We're going to meet the architect, the master of advanced layouts, the one who bends space itself with Flexbox and is true master of the grid. I'm Professor Solo. This is WebDev TnT. P.S. Beginning, middle, the end.